Imagine waking up with that electrical hum in your veins. You know the one. It's not just energy, it's that edge, that hunger to dominate the day before your feet even hit the floor. Your mind is a laser. Your body feels like it could punch through walls. That's not some fantasy from a supplement ad. That's biology, firing on all cylinders. That's what testosterone actually feels like when your system isn't sabotaged. But most men today don't even remember that feeling. Instead, you're dragging yourself out of bed like you're underwater. There's this fog between your ears that won't lift. By 2 in the afternoon, you're hunting for caffeine or sugar just to stay conscious. You look in the mirror and wonder where the hell that guy went, the one who used to feel dangerous. So you do what you've been told. You eat breakfast, snack, lunch, snack, dinner, snack. You've heard it 1,000 times from every fitness guru with a protein shaker. You need to eat every 3 hours to keep that metabolism roaring, to keep your testosterone high. Except here's the thing nobody's telling you. What if that constant stream of fuel is actually drowning the engine? What if by never hitting the pause button on eating, you're creating a silent biological catastrophe that's actively castrating your hormonal potential? Let me introduce you to the villain you didn't know was living in your bloodstream, chronic insulin. When you're eating every few hours all day long, your insulin never gets to drop. It stays elevated, hovering like a wet blanket over your entire hormonal dashboard. And here's where it gets sinister. Insulin doesn't just store fat, it actively blocks the signaling pathways your brain uses to communicate with your testicles. Your hypothalamus is trying to send the message, hey, produce more testosterone, but insulin is standing in the middle of that conversation like a bouncer at a club. The signal never gets through. Your testicles are waiting for orders that never arrive. This is a battle for your biological sovereignty. You can lift all the weights you want. You can take all the zinc, the ashwagandha, the tonkat ali, but if the signaling is broken at the root, you're just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Now, maybe you've even tried intermittent fasting before. Maybe you made it through the first week and felt like absolute garbage. Your energy tanked, your libido disappeared. So you quit. You thought, see, I crashed my hormones. This fasting thing is a scam. But here's the twist. You didn't wait long enough to see the magic flip, because what happens to your testosterone after day 30 is completely different from what happens on day 3. Most men give up right before the biological reboot kicks in. So let's walk through the fire together. You're in day 5 of your fasting window, and you feel flatter than a panic-sold stock portfolio. Your muscles look smaller. Your mood is in the gutter. And yeah, your libido, it packed its bags and left town. You look at yourself and think, I'm starving myself. Of course, my testosterone is dropping. Here's the most important thing I can tell you right now. You are not broken. This is the process. And almost everyone who quits does it right here, right in the middle of what I call the stress gap. When you suddenly cut your eating window, your body doesn't immediately understand that this is intentional. All it knows is that food has become scarce, and in the ancient wiring of your nervous system, food scarcity means danger. So your adrenal glands start pumping out cortisol like a fire hose. Now here's where the biology gets brutal. Testosterone and cortisol are locked in an inverse relationship. They're on opposite ends of a seesaw. When one goes up, the other has to come down. Your body is making a choice. Do I invest energy in reproduction and building muscle, or do I invest it in survival and finding my next meal? Survival wins. Every single time. This is what researchers call gonadotropin suppression. It's temporary, but it's real. This is the hunter's anxiety. It's not a malfunction. It's a feature, not a bug. When your ancestors couldn't find food, their bodies made them irritable, restless, hyper-alert. That cortisol spike was there to make them better hunters, to sharpen their focus, to keep them moving, to make them aggressive enough to track down the next kill. Here's the analogy that helped me understand this. Imagine you're renovating your kitchen. Before you can install any of that beauty, you've got to endure the demolition, the sledgehammers, the dust clouds, the chaos. Your kitchen looks worse than it did before you started. But that mess? That's not destruction. That's preparation. And that cortisol spike you're feeling, that's the demolition phase. Studies published in journals like the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism have documented this exact phenomenon. Short-term fasting causes a temporary dip in testosterone as cortisol rises. And here's what's critical. The key word is temporary. Once your system realizes that you're not actually starving, once it understands that you're just operating on a different rhythm, everything changes. The cortisol begins to clear, and that's when the real machinery turns on. Welcome to the other side. You're somewhere between week 2 and week 4 now, and something has shifted. That fog that was sitting on your chest? Gone. You wake up and your mind is clear, sharp, almost uncomfortably alert. Your energy isn't just back. It's different. It's not the jittery, spike and crash energy you get from coffee and carbs. This is steady, relentless. And here's the part that confuses most guys. Your testosterone levels on a blood test might not look that different. Maybe they've gone up slightly. Maybe they've stayed exactly the same, but you feel like a completely different man. So what's going on? This is where the real magic lives. It's not just about how much testosterone is floating around in your bloodstream. It's about how sensitive your cells are to that testosterone. It's about androgen receptor sensitivity. Your cells have these receptors, these tiny docking stations on their surface that testosterone binds to. When testosterone locks into those receptors, that's when you get the strength, the drive, the aggression, the clarity. But when insulin is chronically elevated from constant eating, those receptors get numb. They stop listening. It's like they're wearing noise-canceling headphones because there's too much insulin noise cluttering the signal. Fasting rips those headphones off. Suddenly, your androgen receptors wake up. They become hyper-responsive. Even average levels of testosterone start hitting you like a freight train. You're getting more bang for your buck. One study out of the University of Virginia found that men who practiced intermittent fasting showed dramatically improved androgen receptor expression in muscle tissue, even when total testosterone remained stable. You're not necessarily making more hormone, you're just using what you have exponentially more efficiently. But that's not even the full story, because while your testosterone sensitivity is skyrocketing, something else is happening. Your growth hormone explodes. I'm talking about increases of up to 2,000% in some studies. Yes, you heard that right. 2,000%. When you fast for even 16 to 24 hours, your pituitary gland starts dumping growth hormone into your system, and growth hormone is the unsung hero of male physiology. It's the muscle guardian. It preserves lean mass, even when you're in a caloric deficit. It mobilizes fat for fuel. And it works synergistically with testosterone, amplifying its effects. Think of growth hormone and testosterone as business partners. Testosterone is the architect designing the muscle. Growth hormone is the construction crew making sure the blueprint gets built and protected. Now let's talk about what's happening upstairs. Your brain enters what I call hunt mode. When you're fasting, your brain releases norepinephrine and dopamine. This combination creates that hunter's high that men report. You're not manic. You're not anxious. You're dialed in. You feel like a predator. And evolutionarily, this makes perfect sense. When food was scarce, your ancestors couldn't afford to be sluggish and depressed. They needed to be at their cognitive peak to hunt, to strategize, to survive. And here's one more piece of the puzzle. As you lose body fat through fasting, something remarkable happens to your hormonal profile. Body fat, especially around your belly, contains an enzyme called aromatase, and aromatase is a testosterone thief. It converts your precious testosterone into estrogen. The more fat you carry, the more your testosterone gets converted into a hormone you don't want elevated as a man. But as fasting strips away that visceral fat, you reduce aromatase activity. Your testosterone stays as testosterone. You get a purer, more potent hormonal profile. It's like plugging the leak in a dam. Now, you might be thinking, okay, the focus is great, the hormones sound incredible, but I don't want to wither away. I want to keep my size. And that brings us to the biggest fear men have about fasting, the nightmare scenario. You skip breakfast, and in your mind, you can practically hear your biceps screaming as they shrivel up and disappear. You've been told your whole lifting life that if you don't get protein every 3 hours, your body starts cannibalizing muscle. It's gospel, it's doctrine, and it's also wrong. Let's talk about what actually happens when you fast. Yes, your body enters a state called autophagy. The word literally means self-eating. And I know that sounds terrifying, but here's what they don't tell you. Your body isn't stupid. It's not some panicked machine that starts burning the furniture to heat the house when there's plenty of firewood and trash lying around. Your body has priorities, and muscle, functional lean tissue, is way too valuable to destroy first. Think of autophagy as a microscopic cleaning crew that shows up when you finally give your system a break from digestion. These cellular janitors go through every room in your body looking for garbage, damaged proteins, senescent cells, misfolded junk, dysfunctional mitochondria. Autophagy recycles that trash. It breaks it down and repurposes it to build new, functional structures. You're not losing muscle, you're refining it. In fact, this process of autophagy is so critical to human health that it won the Nobel Prize in Physiology in 2016. And here's the part that should make every guy pay attention. Fasting doesn't just preserve your gains, it enhances the quality of what you have. You might look slightly smaller in the mirror during the first week or two, but you're not losing muscle mass. You're losing water weight and inflammation. When your body depletes its glycogen stores, you shed the water that was bound to that glycogen. But what's underneath? Denser, harder, more defined muscle. The kind of muscle that looks carved, not puffy. But let's go beyond the mirror for a second. Erectile quality, blood flow, hydraulics. It's not just about testosterone levels. It's about whether your vascular system can actually deliver that testosterone and all the blood it needs to where it counts. Fasting dramatically improves your endothelial function. When you fast, your body increases nitric oxide production. Nitric oxide is the molecule that dilates your blood vessels, increases circulation, and yes, powers erections. Better blood flow doesn't just mean better performance in the gym, it means better performance everywhere. Here's another thing nobody mentions. Fasting resets your dopamine receptors. We live in a world of constant stimulation, food, screens, notifications, porn, sugar, caffeine. Your dopamine system is fried. You're numb. Nothing excites you anymore. Fasting forces a dopamine detox. When you stop flooding your system with easy hits of pleasure from constant eating, your receptors become sensitive again. Suddenly, food tastes incredible. Sex feels electric. You start caring about things again. You want to chase goals, pursue challenges, take risks. You feel alive. That's not motivational fluff. That's neurochemistry being restored to factory settings. So we've cleared the fog. We've protected the muscle, we've sharpened the mind and upgraded the plumbing, but how do we turn this from a 30-day experiment into a lifelong strategy? This isn't a diet. Diets are prisons with expiration dates. What we're building is something called metabolic flexibility. And metabolic flexibility is the closest thing to a biological superpower that exists. Metabolic flexibility means your body can seamlessly switch between fuel sources. It can burn glucose when it's available. It can burn fat when it's not. It doesn't panic. It doesn't crash. You become fuel agnostic. And that freedom, that independence from the constant need to eat, changes everything. You're not controlled by your stomach anymore. You're not a slave to the clock, to the snack drawer, to the vending machine. You decide when you eat based on your goals and your schedule, not because your body is screaming at you like a toddler throwing a tantrum. Now, imagine yourself 10 years from now, 20, 30. Most men are on a slow, inevitable decline. Their belly expands, their energy evaporates, their testosterone plummets. They need pills for blood pressure, pills for cholesterol, pills to get it up. They shuffle through their 50s and 60s feeling like shadows of who they used to be. But you're different. You have low visceral fat because you've mastered the insulin game. Your hormonal profile looks like a man half your age because you've protected it through decades of intelligent fasting. You're not dependent on a snack pack to function. You're resilient. You're anti-fragile. You're the guy at 50 who still looks dangerous. And here's what nobody tells you about hunger. Hunger is not an emergency. It's a signal. It's information. But we've been conditioned to treat it like a 5-alarm fire that needs to be put out immediately. But hunger comes in waves. It peaks and then it passes. If you can sit with it for even 20 minutes, it fades. And every time you practice that, every time you acknowledge the signal without reacting to it, you build mastery. You build self-control. And self-control is the ultimate definition of masculinity. When you stop being a slave to the fridge, you stop being a slave to your impulses. You become sovereign. Here's the one-liner I want you to remember. Feasting is the celebration of life, but fasting is the cleansing of it. You need both to be whole. You need the abundance, the joy, the social connection that comes from sitting down to a great meal with people you love. But you also need the discipline, the reset, the purification that comes from stepping away from the table and letting your body breathe. This is the rhythm of a powerful life. Expansion and contraction. Feast and fast. So here's what I need you to do. If this information has value to you, if you feel like you just unlocked a piece of the puzzle you've been missing, hit that subscribe button and share this video with someone who's stuck in the old paradigm, who's frustrated, who's losing the battle and doesn't know why. This information could change his life. You didn't come here to be entertained. You came here to evolve.